before I end up in a homicide.
The Unseen Crisis, a call to conscience in Silicon Valley. Beneath the shimmering facade of Silicon Valley, where innovation gleams and fortunes are forged, a darker, more harrowing reality festers. It's a story whispered in shadows, one that the polished narratives of technological triumph are designed to obscure. In Scottsdale, Arizona, wealth doesn't just bloom, it explodes into manicured perfection, shielded by towering gates and an almost defiant opulence. Yet, just a few minutes' drive from this gilded sanctuary, the mask of prosperity slips, revealing a landscape where shadows move with hollow eyes and bodies twitch in doorways. This isn't a dystopian sci-fi thriller. It is happening now, a stark, undeniable mutation of the American dream into something unrecognizable. What went so terribly wrong in a place that prides itself on solving the world's most complex problems? And why, in the heart of unparalleled wealth and ingenuity, is no one truly stopping it? This is not merely a report. It is an urgent plea, a raw truth laid bare. If the plight of those forgotten, those pushed to the margins, resonates within you, then this narrative demands your attention. It is a journey into the quiet apocalypse unfolding in our midst, a call to awaken the conscience and ignite the empathy that seems to be eroding with every passing moment. The disconnect: wealth, technology, and human suffering. Seattle, once a symbol of modern progress and the Pacific Northwest gateway to the digital age, gleamed with audacity and an unstoppable spirit of innovation. Yet, behind the sleek campuses of tech giants and the million-dollar high-rises sprouting along the waterfront, lies a truth so dark, no algorithm can repair it. The very region that championed cloud computing and global logistics now harbors a crisis it seems utterly incapable of addressing. We are not merely losing the battle, we are losing the war when it comes to the fundamental right of housing and the dignity that comes with it. The silent epidemic of homelessness in America finds one of its most poignant and unsettling expressions here, where the stark contrast between abundance and utter destitution is almost unbearable. In Philadelphia's Kensington neighborhood, this particular gate has earned a chilling name, the Shuffle. It is a slow, haunting march, not of leisure or purpose, but shaped by the insidious grip of opioids that drain the soul long before the body finally gives out. It is the physical manifestation of a spirit in retreat, a life force slowly being extinguished. And just a few blocks away, the air in upscale food halls and co-working lounges of Center City buzzes with the hum of lattes and Slack notifications, a symphony of productivity and comfort. Employees in designer sneakers walk past tents and discarded needles, as if the suffering were an invisible, non-existent backdrop. The disconnect is not merely stark, it is staggering. Autonomous cars glide quietly through streets in Chicago's West Loop, just meters away from communities racked by addiction and despair. Food delivery apps promise comfort and instant gratification in minutes, while the victims of overdose wait hours for help, if help ever comes at all. In a place where wealth is measured in billions and innovation is worshipped like a new religion, human life seems to carry no discernible value. The rich are shielded, not just by their glass penthouses, but by tinted car windows and the ever-watchful eyes of private security. The rest, the forgotten, are left to wither in the margins, unseen, untreated, and utterly abandoned. It's not just neglect, it's a profound, systemic abandonment, wrapped in the chilling silence of societal indifference. These people, these souls adrift, did not simply fall through cracks. They were pushed by housing costs that defy reason, rising with a relentless hunger that devours hope, pushed by broken systems that failed them long before their final, desperate descent, pushed by a society that, somewhere along the way, decided that some lives simply do not matter enough to save. Cities like Seattle, with their uncanny ability to track every click, every delivery, every footstep, somehow stopped seeing these people. This is not merely a failure of policy or economics, it is a failure of human conscience. And the question we must now confront is not how it got this bad, but why we, as a society, ever let it happen in the first place. The silent epidemic of homelessness in America grows on, a haunting reflection of what we have allowed ourselves to ignore. The unraveling of order, crime, fear, and desperation. The headlines, even the most sensational, barely capture the full horror. The cold, hard numbers, stark as they are, fail to tell the complete story. What is truly happening on the streets of Portland, Oregon, is not merely homelessness. It is a slow, agonizing unraveling of law, of safety, and of the very fabric of human decency. When people are forced to survive with no shelter, no help, and no hope, the primal instinct for survival turns savage, raw, and often violent. You see it in every shattered car window, a jagged testament to desperation. You see it in every closed storefront, their darkened facades a silent surrender to the encroaching chaos. You see it in every neighborhood that, out of sheer fear rather than luxury, installs brighter lights and taller fences, trying to cordon off the encroaching darkness. The whispered question on the streets is chilling. What's the likelihood of getting shot out here? Very likely. Yeah. So, you always stay trapped? Yeah, you got to. This ain't no game out here. People can't just walk from this street to that street without getting murdered. The words hang heavy, a stark reminder that for many, simply existing is a constant negotiation with danger. Downtown Portland, once a vibrant hub of commerce and culture, has become a stark warning sign. Stores that once thrived now lock their doors before dusk, their interiors dark and empty. Shoplifting isn't an occasional nuisance. It's an expected, almost ritualistic occurrence. Employees are trained not to intervene, but to stand back, to watch, because intervention can get you stabbed, shoved, or worse. Even major retailers, with their vast resources and security budgets, are pulling out, abandoning prime locations. They have learned the same brutal truth that the streets have long known. The system, as it stands, isn't coming to save you. But the chaos isn't confined to commercial zones. Step into the underpasses of Chicago's South Side, those cavernous concrete arteries, and the makeshift camps that cling to their shadows, and you enter another reality entirely. Inside the tents, the darkness grows deeper, a world unpoliced, unnoticed, and ungoverned by the laws of the outside. These places have their own brutal rules, written in the desperate ink of survival. Theft is common, a constant threat to the meager possessions of others. Assault is even more so. Women and the mentally ill are especially vulnerable, their cries for help often unheard, their suffering rarely reaching the light of day. They don't file reports because, tragically, who would they report to? The officers are stretched thin, jaded by the endless cycle, and often respond hours late, if at all. Fights erupt over scraps of food, over a coveted patch of ground, over drugs, and sometimes over nothing at all. A look, a word, a flash of memory from a trauma too deep to name. And the people involved, victims and aggressors, blur into an indistinguishable mass of desperation. A man who swings a bat today may be found lifeless tomorrow. A woman who robs someone for a fix might overdose by sunrise. These are not hardened criminals in the traditional sense. These are people broken by the relentless grip of addiction, by untreated illness, and by years of being unseen, unheard, and unhelped. Even the affluent, shielded as they are, feel the ripple effect. In towns like Bellevue, Washington, and Highland Park, Illinois, whispers circulate among neighbors about break-ins and armed confrontations. Extra locks are installed, ring cameras blink from every porch, and private patrol cars become a common sight. It's not because they hate the homeless in America, but because deep down, they know this chaos isn't staying contained. It's leaking through the cracks, seeping into their carefully constructed worlds. This isn't lawlessness for profit, it's violence born from collapse. It is what happens when the very foundation of society crumbles and the people who fall through are left to fight each other for air, for survival, for a shred of dignity in an unforgiving world. The invisible chains: exploitation, prostitution, and trafficking. In the quiet, decaying corners of collapsing cities, something even darker, more insidious, lurks beneath the surface: the grim realities of prostitution and human trafficking. It doesn't announce itself with the wail of sirens or the blare of sensational headlines. It moves in silence, a predatory shadow feeding off despair, exploiting the most vulnerable. Every woman leaning into a car window, every teenager loitering outside a motel, they are not always making a choice. Many are being sold, controlled, or manipulated by someone standing in the shadows, pulling the strings of their shattered lives. Addiction, a relentless master, fuels this horrific cycle. In neighborhoods overrun by the twin scourges of fentanyl and methamphetamine, the body itself becomes a form of payment, a desperate trade for the next high, a temporary shield from the excruciating agony of withdrawal. But every transaction, every act of degradation deepens the wound mentally, physically, and spiritually. Dignity fades like a forgotten dream. Hope dissolves into the bitter dust of the streets. What makes this particular cruelty so profound is its almost complete invisibility. Most people simply don't see it, or perhaps, more accurately, they don't want to. The buyers hide behind tinted windows, their identities shielded from the light. The traffickers blend seamlessly into the crowd, their evil cloaked in anonymity. And society, in its collective blindness, looks away, convincing itself that this is just another sad street story, another unfortunate consequence of bad choices. But it is not. It is organized, it is profitable, and it thrives in the very places where systems have failed, where the social safety net has disintegrated, and where human beings have been utterly forgotten. The silent suffering of homeless in America often includes this hidden dimension of exploitation. This isn't about individual bad decisions. It's about fundamentally broken structures, societal failings that allow exploitation to exist unchecked, to flourish in the shadows. Solutions exist, but they demand a courageous confrontation with uncomfortable truths. We need more than arrests and court dates. We need more outreach, more safe housing, comprehensive trauma recovery programs, and real, viable exit plans. We need to stop criminalizing survival, to stop treating poverty and addiction as crimes, and instead to disrupt the insidious networks that profit off pain and despair. Because if we allow this to become mere background noise, a tragic footnote in the story of our cities, we are not just failing them, we are surrendering our own humanity. And in a place as wealthy, as advanced, as supposedly enlightened as Silicon Valley, that is not just tragic, it is unforgivable. If these stories, these raw truths, matter to you, then do not let them vanish into the ether. Like this video, share it, subscribe, let the silence end here, and let the voices of the forgotten finally be heard. The quiet collapse. Inequality beyond urban centers. We often discuss inequality as a phenomenon confined to the glittering metropolises of New York City or Los Angeles, cities where billionaires and the visibly homeless in America share the same blocks, their lives existing in stark, jarring proximity. But the truth, a far more unsettling truth, is that inequality is not merely a big city problem. It is hitting just as hard, and in some ways even more invisibly, in towns with average home prices, in the quiet suburbs and forgotten exurbs, in places like Boise, Idaho, or Spokane, Washington, where the median home costs a seemingly modest $380, $420, one wouldn't expect to see sprawling tent cities or entire families living out of their cars. Yet, you do. This is because the crisis is not solely about the astronomical price of a house. It is about the relentless, unforgiving speed at which everything else, rent, groceries, gas, medical bills, childcare, is rising, while wages for the vast majority of people barely budge, if they move at all. The gap between income and expenditure is widening into a chasm, swallowing up lives with terrifying speed. In Austin, Texas, the fall from middle-class stability to the abyss of homelessness is not a slow, gentle decline. It is a sudden, brutal drop. One pink slip, one missed paycheck, one unexpected medical emergency, one death in the family, and the fragile safety net vanishes as if it never existed. There is no grace period, no cushion, just the precipitous edge of a cliff and the relentless pull of gravity. The chilling reality is that a lot of these people are not going to know that they're not getting unemployment until they get the letter in the mail, and they're going to be scared. The bureaucratic delays, the impersonal systems only serve to deepen the despair. Many of them had jobs. Many still have dreams, hope, and the desire for stability. What they don't have is a chance, a real shot, in a system that has no margin for error and even less space for compassion. Homelessness is not always the result of bad decisions. Sometimes it's simply bad luck, made worse by a system that no longer forgives. But make no mistake, the insidious spread of inequality is not just an urban blight. It is everywhere now. In Des Moines, Iowa, in Fayetteville, Arkansas, in Manchester, New Hampshire. A quiet, creeping decay, and if we only look for it in the obvious, visible places, we will tragically miss the quiet collapse happening in our own backyards, the growing numbers of homeless in America who are slipping through society's fingers, the erosion of empathy, normalizing, suffering. The most terrifying aspect of this escalating crisis isn't what we see, it's what we no longer react to. It's the chilling normalization of suffering. Bodies slumped in doorways, their forms contorted by despair, needles glinting on playgrounds, silent testaments to addiction's reach, screams echoing from alleyways, raw cries of pain or madness. These sights, these sounds, should shake us to our core, rip through our complacency, and ignite a furious demand for change. Instead, we scroll past them on our phones, sip our coffee, cross the street, our eyes averted, our hearts hardening. We have, in a profound and disturbing sense, normalized collapse, made chaos a part of the background scenery of our lives. This is not merely indifference, it is a profound erosion of empathy, a catastrophic breakdown of accountability, a chilling surrender of basic humanity. When did this become acceptable? When did the act of dying in the open air lose its ability to shock us, to stir us to action? Somewhere along the line, we stopped asking the uncomfortable questions. We started explaining it away with convenient, self-serving narratives. They made bad choices. It's not our problem. They're just addicts. But suffering does not become less real because it is common. Tragedy does not lose its weight, its devastating impact, because we witness it daily. And every single time we choose convenience over compassion, every time we avert our gaze, the cracks in our collective humanity widen, deeper, and more irrevocably. The zombies haunting our cities, the figures we see shuffling through the streets, are not monsters from a horror film. They are mirrors. They reflect, with brutal honesty, what we tolerate, what we have given up on, and how far we have drifted from the communities we pretend to care about. They are the stark, living embodiment of the growing numbers of homeless in America. If this silent, creeping decay continues unchecked, it will not stay confined to the margins, to the tent cities and the dark alleyways. Collapse, by its very nature, never does. Decay spreads quietly, invisibly, like a virulent infection, until it is too late to reverse its course. It spreads until apathy becomes the norm, until human beings are reduced to mere statistics, easily dismissed and forgotten. So, the final question, simple yet urgent, hangs heavy in the air. What will it take for us to care again? Because silence is not neutral, it is complicity. And the longer we accept this horrifying reality as normal, the harder it becomes to build anything better, anything truly human. The unforgivable contradiction. Wealth versus despair. In Greenwich, Connecticut, the lawns remain flawlessly manicured, emerald carpets stretching toward grand estates and colonial mansions. Security cameras blink from every wrought iron gate, silent sentinels guarding unimaginable wealth. Luxury SUVs glide past historic stone walls and tree-lined drives, their quiet elegance a symbol of effortless affluence. Dinner arrives with the tap of a screen, a seamless delivery of gourmet convenience. This is the height of American achievement, a place where hedge fund titans trade global strategies over aged scotch and fortunes are made before noon. But drive just 15 minutes down I-95 toward Bridgeport and the dream fractures, shattering into 1,000 desolate pieces. Beneath the overpasses and behind abandoned buildings, you'll find men and women hunched beneath moldy tarps, shielding themselves from the biting cold with threadbare coats and scraps of cardboard. Some haven't showered in weeks. Their bodies are marked by frostbite and exhaustion, their sleep disrupted by fear and the ever-present threat of violence. Many have lost contact with family, with reality, and often with their own names, their identities worn down by the relentless machinery of poverty and neglect. In one zip code, wealth has reached the stratosphere. Greenwich ranks among the wealthiest communities in America, with a median household income exceeding 180. In the very next, entire families survive in cars or shelters, if they're lucky. In Bridgeport, more than 18% of residents live below the poverty line, and the city's emergency shelters frequently operate at or beyond capacity. This is not about scarcity. It is about a profound, unforgivable contradiction. There is enough money here, in this narrow corridor of extreme affluence, to end regional homelessness many times over. There is enough institutional knowledge and logistical capacity to design and fund scalable solutions. But we don't, not because we can't, but because, in a chilling act of collective will, we won't. We've mastered artificial intelligence, creating machines that can write poetry, mimic empathy, and execute trades in nanoseconds. We've optimized nearly every aspect of modern life: transportation, logistics, productivity, entertainment, everything, that is, except compassion. And so, in one world, companies race to upload human consciousness to the cloud in pursuit of digital immortality. In the other, human beings are simply begging for a warm place to sleep and a moment of safety. This is not some abstract failure of economic models. It is a catastrophic collapse of priorities. Somewhere along the way, speed outpaced soul. Efficiency outran empathy. And we, as a society, have come to accept that a region boasting multi-trillion-dollar financial portfolios and Ivy League prep academies can also be home to overdose deaths, tent encampments, and unsheltered children. The contrast doesn't just sting. It indicts us, exposing the moral void beneath the glittering surface. Because when students walk past tents on their way to elite classrooms in Westchester County, when a mother overdoses just a mile from a six-figure charity gala, when two worlds exist side by side but never truly touch, that is not progress. That is pathology. If we've taught machines to sound like they care, perhaps it's time we reminded ourselves as human beings how to care again. Solutions exist. The call for courage. We are not lost. And the hopeful truth is, we already know what works. Cities that invest in permanent supportive housing, long-term addiction treatment, and mental health care without stigma have seen real, lasting change. These efforts don't just remove tents, they rebuild lives. Decriminalizing poverty and offering real, consistent outreach based on trust can reach those society has abandoned. What people need isn't punishment, it's patience, presence, and compassion. But here's the hard truth. These solutions take time, cost money, and don't offer quick wins. They demand something rarer than funding, courage, the courage to face uncomfortable truths, to stop pretending this crisis doesn't affect us all. This isn't just a public health issue. It's a moral crisis. If we continue to ignore it, we lose not only lives, but pieces of our own humanity. The real question is no longer how to fix it, but whether we still have the heart to try. The quiet apocalypse and the call to speak. We always imagined the end would come with a bang. Loud mushroom clouds, fiery riots, something undeniably cataclysmic that would force us to confront our demise. But what if it's this quiet? What if the apocalypse isn't a sudden violent eruption, but a slow, creeping decay? A man is dying on a sidewalk, his last breaths barely audible, while commuters check their emails, their faces illuminated by the glow of their screens. A child steps over discarded syringes on the way to school, their innocence slowly eroded by the grim reality. A woman screams into the night, a raw, primal cry of anguish, and no one looks up, no one intervenes. This is not dystopia imagined, it is now. It is the chilling, undeniable present. And the scariest part of all? We've adjusted. We've made peace with the decay. We shake our heads, perhaps mutter a perfunctory, "What a shame," then scroll on, our attention diverted by the next digital distraction. That numbness, that profound societal apathy, that is the real infection, spreading faster and more insidiously than any virus. Because these zombies aren't just staggering through alleyways, their bodies ravaged by chemicals. They are walking among us, in tailored suits and startup hoodies, their souls dulled by distraction, their empathy replaced with algorithms, their hearts hardened by convenience. They are the silent, unseen, homeless in America, and they are everywhere. We keep asking with a bewildered air, how did this happen? But perhaps the question is worse, far more terrifying in its implication. What if it already has? What if the scariest truth isn't that the world is ending, but that it already did? And in our relentless pursuit of progress and comfort, we simply didn't notice. If this narrative, this raw, unvarnished truth, hit something deep within you, do not let it fade into the background noise. Do not let the silence continue. Like this video, share it, subscribe to the channel, and most importantly, speak. Because the only way to fight back against the deafening silence, the only way to awaken the collective conscience, is to raise our voices, loudly and unequivocally, for those who can no longer speak for themselves.